Here talking with Tennessee baseball coach, national champion, king of Knoxville, Tony Vitello. First of all, I'm happy to have you, happy to have this chance to talk face-to-face. I feel like now maybe we can start a beautiful friendship. So on a friendship level, I just want to know, how are you? Are you okay? Are you good?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you looking out. I hope you're doing well, too, although based off the energy, I think you're doing just fine. And we are here, too. It's just you feel that season creeping up and the fans get excited and they count down the days. We're wishing we could have more days for preparation. We want these guys as prepared as possible. But the bottom line is, once the season starts, you get into a rhythm and you try and make as many improvements as you can.
Yeah, I'm curious, heading into your 8th season here, which seems crazy as someone that's been here for the entire time, of course. I'm sure you think it feels even crazier being here 8 years already, but do you still get nervous? Are you still nervous before the season?
Yeah, I mean, the COVID thing kind of throws everything off, so it seems like a much shorter time that we've been here. Now the parade and some other things have stretched it out, and some days you feel like it's longer that you've been here, but every day has been precious. And I think the thing that our staff kind of all shares, like-mindedness, is we get a little nervous about how well, again, we can prepare our guys, or paranoia that we leave some details out or don't have something covered. But once the games start, I think, for the most part, it's the players that have that natural set of nerves that'll calm butterflies in your stomach, and all that's healthy. It's just a matter of how you deal with it. So our job as coaches on game day, because we can't play, is to make sure they utilize adrenaline and energy and nerves and excitement, especially on opening day. Try and utilize that to your favor as opposed to it working against you.
So do you personally feel any different? I mean, of course, the weight's off your shoulders. You got the national championship. You reached the top of the sport. Is it a different feeling of now, like, hey, you're the hunted, you got to go out and defend it? Hey, I want another one. The second one's going to be better than the first one. Or is it just the same as it's always been?
No, I think, and maybe it sounds absurd, but I think the theme has kind of been the same for me and our staff, is we want to do great things here. And I mentioned this to our team the other day. I love where we're at right now with every sport on our campus, and things are going well for baseball, but this is a very short window that we've been here, and in an even smaller window that we've been having success. Some of the other teams in our league and programs have been doing all kinds of great things for a very extended amount of time. So in the big perspective, or the grand scheme of things, baseball is a sample size sport. We're trying to make progress and can finish this stadium, continue getting better in recruiting and the way we coach, and try and continue to do great things that make Vol fans, of course, proud.
Yeah, you talk about doing something special here, and I think, the proof is in the pudding there. But was there a time early on in your career where it finally clicked for you here, where you thought, okay, this could be something special? Of course, not having necessarily the proof of concept first, but then, you get in here, you start winning some games, you start seeing the fan reaction. Is there a moment that stood out to you?
Yeah, I had a very wise person on the phone once early in our time here say, hey, get that thing, try and get that program a little bit better, and then you guys as a staff will get a better job. And it kind of took me back a little bit, because I felt like all the ingredients were here to have success. A lot of it was faith more than seeing it. But once we started to win and the fans came out the way they did in 21, when we could only have so many people in the stands, and then that 21 year just in general, that's when we knew we could have sustainable success here, whether it be the facility getting better, the amount of fans coming out, the support from administration. There started to become signs, not just with our play on the field for our guys that year, but signs that this could be a sustainable situation. And, the last year was more memorable than the others, but those others were good too. So, you also asked about being the hunted. It wasn't to be abrasive or disrespectful, but when people brought that up this summer, that now you guys are going to be the hunted, I kind of laughed. And I think since Drew Gilbert got on our campus, or, I've done goofy stuff or whatever, Frank's got big presence in our dugout. That's kind of been the case for a while now. And so it comes with the deal. You would rather be talked about by your opponent as opposed to shunned or even disrespected by your opponent.
Yeah. I'm sorry if you've already talked about everything this summer. I know you were a wanted man. On a scale of 0 to 100, how tired are you of all these preseason media hits?
No, I don't mind that at all. And now I'm used to it. And actually, John Curry, one of his big hurdles, I guess, as it related to my name being thrown in the mix was I had never been a head coach. You got to handle the media here because the whole state is so loyal and so interested in everything going on here. And there is a huge media base. So it's been fun to get to know the media. They've been supportive of our efforts. They help our kids in a lot of different ways. So I enjoy that relationship. The one part I don't like is this time of year, people trying to back us into a corner and say, who's your starting this? Who's starting this then? We don't decide really until a couple days before opening day. And then after opening day, we expect competition to create changes in the lineup, in the rotation.
Well, that's the thing. I think anybody that's followed your program and watched your teams, like, you've earned that respect. You've earned that benefit of the doubt that things will work out the way they're supposed to. The pitching staff will be in good hands with crazy ass Frank. Like he will get it taken care of. You will find the combination of bats. Is there a timeline that usually you feel like it clicks in a season when you can kind of put your stamp on it and say, okay, this is what this team's personality is. This is what I want them to be, or this is who they are. How long does that usually take, or is every team different?
Yeah, I think for personality, you kind of want that to be formulated, halfway in the fall and a good portion of it being now going into the season. And then you want to make modifications or encourage certain things or discourage certain things. But then when the season starts, we've got 4 weeks of non-conference play. And by SEC play, that fifth weekend, you kind of want to have an idea of who needs to be where and what your best punch is you can throw at the opponent. So that's kind of another kind of peak of the mountain, so to speak. And then in May, the guys should kind of be taken over. They should be able to come to the coaches and request this or that, or say, I'm capable of doing this. Griffin Merritt's a great example of what I'm talking about. In 23, he came to us and said, I need to be in the lineup every day. This is my last year of baseball. I'm a team leader. I'm capable of helping us win. And we said, all right, we'll do it. And of course, he needed to back it up, and he did. And it was one of the things that kind of switched that team around into a very successful team. It was they had leadership. And by May, those players kind of started to take even more ownership than the coaches of that particular team.
Yeah, I won't ask you too many specifics about this team, but I do feel like I have to ask about Alberto Ozuna, who kind of came out of nowhere, I feel like, over the weekend, and all of a sudden, like, hey, going to take advantage of the Diego Pavia rule of, like, hey, JUCO doesn't really count towards eligibility, and now, finds himself on the team. Do you expect him to be up to speed, ready to go early on, kind of from day one, or is that a thing that he'll have to kind of ease his way in?
The whole thing is kind of a cloudy situation, and all that began, heck, I was at a grocery store in Mexico, and Ross Kivett, our assistant coach that returned here, I had no idea about the deal with Vanderbilt and Nashville and their quarterback, but apparently that triggered some other things. And, our assistants make it easier to sleep at night. They do so much more grunt work than I do now. Some days I feel like, compared to our first couple of years here, I feel like I'm useless. But that was one of those situations where certain people on staff here and, of course, across the street with administration really put in a lot of hours. And so we'll see how things kind of shape up there. But the timing, all that really started quite some time ago.
You're here courtesy of the Sertoma Center. Friendship Night, February 6th, a night of comedy with you and Josh Mancuso. I'll be in the building. We're running some ads. We're doing some promotion here at FanRun Radio. I look forward to seeing it. But it made me think. It made me curious. Who is your go-to funny guy throughout your life? Like comedian, actor, who's your go-to funny guy?
Well, it goes through stages, and we showed a clip of Eddie Murphy to our players the other day from his Delirious stand-up set, which was one of my favorites, and he probably was the originator for me. Saturday Night Live was such a big deal back then, but he was kind of the Michael Jordan or superstar, the whole deal. And some of our guys, I could see it in their face. They didn't know who he was. And
at one point, the most famous person in the world, probably, or at least the most famous non-Michael Jackson person.
The guy he created a hit song, for gosh sake.
Yeah.
That's tough to get out of your head, whether you like it or not, as far as the party song there.
I've been waiting for one of your players to come out to it. I've been waiting for somebody to embrace that song.
But then the Chappelle Show kind of came on board, and it was kind of a passing of the guard there, at least in my own personal little Rolodex of guys. But now, with YouTube and Spotify and everything else, there are so many options at all kinds of stuff, whether it's trying to encourage our guys to look into mentality or mindset. It's no longer just Tony Robbins. You can go up and down a whole, and then same thing with comedy. Gosh dang, we've seen Joe Coy here in town. But there's a bunch of great acts that come in town, and it's so cool that you can choose from a bunch. And heck, even cooler is working in the state of Tennessee. You get to meet guys like Theo Vaughn and get to know them as a person and realize they're great dudes. And also crazy. Speaking of crazy, the only one crazier than Frank I know is Theo. He is like that all the time. And
it's been so wild. And maybe you have a similar experience, but I remember watching Theo on like the Real World Road Rules Challenge, like, back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I still love that show, but seeing him go from that to, just one of the biggest, podcasters and comedians in the world has been kind of crazy to me.
It's a different field, just like, baseball or other sports, comedy, acting. These are all, you have to go through the grind to get there. And Theo started out with one of my best friends, Brian Smith, who's in Shrinking and a few other shows. And Brian said, he tried the acting thing and then decided to veer off to comedy. And those people that came up going to auditions, they support one another. He'd go watch Theo, and he said he was terrible, at first. And the guy's worked – he is naturally funny, but he has worked his butt off. If you're ever around him, you can't have a conversation with him without him going to his phone and putting comedy ideas in his notes. So it doesn't matter what field, work ethic pays off. And for some guys, it takes longer than others. But we try and preach that to our guys all day long is sooner or later you'll have success if you're putting in the work.
No, with Theo, that 100% would make sense. He seems a little goofy, but it works whenever you become an acquired taste, right? Whenever people get used to your antics or the way you are and people kind of accept you for who you are, maybe you're able to flourish a little bit more. And I don't think that's that different from, you and your program here in Knoxville. Like at first, everyone's like, oh, Tony's so brash. All these guys are not playing the right way. And then all of a sudden, people get used to it, and now that's hardly a talking point anymore.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an acquired taste no matter what you got going on. And I think you get a benefit once you get a reputation. Same meeting with our team. We talked about Chris Chelios. I don't know if you remember him, but he was a hockey Hall of Famer. In his
not
first
a hockey guy, Tony. I'm not a hockey guy.
But you like fighting, I bet. His first few years, he beat the hell out of some guys. So after that, no one would ever mess with him. And same thing with a comedian. Sometimes once they're famous, some of the jokes that would barely get a laugh back in the day get a huge chuckle because the fans are anticipating and they know the guy's personality and they're more comfortable. And so I think we're more comfortable with what our brand name is here. It's going to be a little different each year because it's based off the players you have. I grew up around Whitey Herzog, their style of play was the same every year for the Cardinals. But for us, with all this turnover we have with the draft and recruiting, we're going to play to our strengths, but we'll always, I think, have a little bit of a chip on our shoulder because of, again, the history of our program is not the same as some of the ones in our league.
Yeah, I see, in basketball and football, a lot of the SEC coaches talk about, friendships and group chats. I might be off base here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel that same. I haven't heard that about the baseball coaches. Are you guys like tight, or is there still that real competitive, drive between you guys, and you don't really consider any of them really close friends?
There is a pretty cool little behind the scenes people trying to help one another. And there's a lot of times in recruiting, a Power 5 or Power 4, whatever the heck's going on these days, coach will call another coach. And even though they might be competing for the same player, maybe they share opinions or, hey, what's going on with this guy? Or what did he tell you? It's very competitive. It's competitive with Major League Baseball because they can draft our players. But at the end of the day, baseball is a game where you spend a lot of time at the park, scouting, playing. You got to fill that downtime. And it's kind of always been the good old boy sport a little bit. So I think behind the scenes, people are a lot more friendly than you realize. Just the one thing is about being in the SEC, it's kind of like being the Yankees and the Red Sox manager. You probably don't want to get caught on Instagram hugging one another. But just out of due respect to the rivalry and the intensity of the competition.
So I was caught in a pickle. I was off base. You could use that one Thursday, Tony, if you need that one at the comedy night. I
need some because I love this event. I've gone before, but I'm nervous. It's night of comedy. Like, how do I fit in? We know Mancuso is a guy that's on the rise, and the more people get comfortable with him, the more they're laughing for sure.
Tony, you could do anything, Tony. You're a made man in town. You talk about when people get familiar with you. You could say anything, and you'll get laughs from that crowd at the Sertoma Center. You'll be all right.
Well, the go-to for me in front of a Tennessee audience is just either talk about Kirby or make fun of Kirby or talk about he uses steroids for his mustache, and usually you get a chuckle out of that. So I'll probably have to go with Old Faithful.
I don't know if you knew, but last year during the season, Kirby was doing a weekly radio hit with me in the mornings, and I got to say, the personality you see on the field did not translate really to the radio. You saw the crazy mustache, you saw the antics, and he came on air, and granted, it was like 8:30 in the morning, but he was very dry. We finally got him to crack when he cried. You know, at whatever game it was he cried. Maybe that was in the last game at Lindsey Nelson when we got him on camera crying. I got him to crack finally and make a joke, but the personality didn't come through on radio with Kirby.
Well, you know what's funny is you got the personality is just unexpected. The off-the-field personality is respectful to an extreme. Right now he's on our coaching staff, and, you know, you kind of want him to chum it up with the other guys. I mean, you speak of Ross Kivett. I mean, I bag on Ross 24 hours a day, and he kind of gives me some stuff back too. But Kirby's just, if you know his background, he's an incredibly respectful kid. And you just illustrated, maybe unintentionally, that dynamic of our team that we've had here. Drew Gilbert, you know, I joked about him before, you know, oh, he flips his bat too much. Well, make sure you do your research on how that kid grew up and what he had to overcome to be a Division I athlete and how hard he works. And then more importantly, if you were to get Drew off the field, you would expect plays like Lenny Dykstra, acts like Lenny Dykstra. Well, off the field, the guy was our best guy with community service, with charity, super respectful to people, very low key. You would say a little bit more of a dry personality. So there's that dynamic that I think people need to understand when they're watching a guy in uniform and then when they're talking about an individual as a person.
No, you're 100% right, and I can vouch. I was in Omaha at the rooftop bar. I almost felt bad because, you know, we're celebrating the national championship. The team comes in, and I felt bad for them because, like, I feel like they just want to let loose and have a good time. They just won, but everybody keeps coming up and talking to them. And, you know, I went up and introduced myself to Kirby and thanked you for coming on the show. And every single player just, yes, sir, yes, sir. Made me feel old, but like, yes, sir, thank you. Thanks so much. Just polite to every fan, and I was like, come on, guys, cut loose. You just won the title. But they're still representing the brand.
Was everybody 21 that entered in there?
I wasn't checking IDs. You know, I had my fair share of drinks. I think after the second game, there's a video of me of my jersey unbuttoned, dancing around. I'm not here to throw stones, Tony. I'm not a narc.
I hear you. Well, it was a good night, and I think the guys, even in that setting, they've created a reputation with me. It may be different than others. They sign more autographs than any team in our league, I feel, and they're super respectful off the field. But in between the lines is competition. And, yeah, that was a special night. We had a good little event going at the Marriott Hotel until security showed up. I might, if you remind me, I'll send you the picture off air. We had to convince them with the trophy. If they could get a picture with the trophy, they'd let us continue the shenanigans, if you will.
Did winning that title feel as good as you imagined?
It was hard to imagine. I grew up watching Michael Jordan. You know, I just remember him collapsing a couple times, but also he was incredibly joyous a couple times. So you do think about it a little bit. I didn't know how it would feel. And when people say they black out, a lot of times they're joking. I really didn't know what was going on the field. I didn't know I get teased, but I really didn't know I was on full microphone in the stadium, and I almost ran out to the players, and I realized I'm a coach, so I ran back to the coaches, jumped on their pile. Frank's glasses cut his forehead because I jumped on top of those guys. I'm rambling because I'm trying to convey the chaos that took place, and it's only really sunk in little bits here and there. But I'll tell you what, I kind of shy away from talking about hugging my dad or my mom because it's been overplayed and over talked about. But that was a thought in my head, and doing that while they can celebrate it with me, if you kind of understand, was very, very special. And I remember exactly, the rest of the stuff was a blur. I remember exactly how both of those two things went down.
I mean, I kind of get it. Last night when I told my mom I was talking to you today, I think that's the first time she's been proud of me since I qualified for the state spelling bee in 5th grade. So I kind of get what you're getting at there.
Yeah, no, that's not true. Maybe she's just got high standards for you. That's all, because you set the tone early by making that spelling bee, and
That's true.
yeah, it makes me
We
want to
went to
watch.
we went to the state spelling bee, and I missed my first word, and she yelled at me on the way home for wasting her time because I misspelled defendant.
Ouch!
I blew it.
I bet
The
you'll
lights
never
were too
do it
bright.
again.
I'll never spell it in public again, Tony. I just
If they had a guy like Jason Bateman in that, you would have lost anyway at some point.
That's true. That's true.
So,
You mentioned Shrinking. Have you watched Shrinking?
I only watched it because Brian's in it, and I don't watch much TV. Maybe on the planes, those 30-minute episodes are good, like a Ted Lasso or something. But that show, at first, I was like, all right, let me just go to the episode he's in. And then somehow I started watching it. It's roped me in like no other. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. And I've got to meet Bill Lawrence. That guy's done Ted Lasso. He's done Bad Monkey. He's a genius, and that thing's incredible.
Yeah, I was going to say I just finished up season 2 this weekend, so it's kind of funny you mentioned that. But agree, obviously the Ted Lasso vibes are there, but it's less cheesy Ted Lasso as far as I'm concerned. So you're not a TV guy? Are you a movie guy? When's the last time you've been to the movies?
Yeah, I love movies, but I feel like when we were younger, that was our education. And now Bad Words with Jason Bateman, that one is fairly recent, and I think that's a classic. But I just think there's so many options now, and also making a movie like The Hangover, everybody says you can't do it anymore. So I don't know. I like the classics. I still lean on those when I talk to my buddies on the phone or we text. We'll quote or use pictures or whatever. But I feel like the game has definitely changed, and I don't know if it's for the better or the worse, but some of these shows are so well done. I mean, seeing Harrison Ford reinvent himself is really cool. And I hear he's a great dude, offset around those people too, which makes you like watching it even more. So gotta get away from all the madness a little bit and either have some good music or some good humor.
Well, I was going to say, I saw you, a couple weekends ago during the Auburn game. You came in after an event, the hoodie up, and people still found you, and you immediately got out of there. And I was like, yep, Tony can't go anywhere. Can't stay low. Is that what life is like for you? Just, I mean, you I know you're appreciative of the fans. I know you want to shake every hand, take every picture, but is there anywhere you could go that you could just kind of relax?
It kind of used to be out of city, around different parts of the state, but that's a little bit different now. Yeah, I just don't like being put in a position where you have to say no to anybody because, just like Bryce Harper for the Phillies, he's so appreciative of that city and the fans. Part of it is he realizes they're the ones paying that salary, and they're also the ones elevating the team's performance, with how they cheer. So I feel the same way, and I don't like saying no to a picture or an autograph. But also, there's times where you got to move on to the next thing. You and I jumped on a minute late because you're trying to do as many things as possible here outside of being on the field.
Yeah, I'll get you out of here in just a couple seconds.
No, you're good.
Any thoughts on the Luka trade?
I was absolutely astonished, and I didn't take the time to read into it too much, but I saw defense too, and man, just a wild deal. And now is LeBron going to be traded from the Lakers, which I don't necessarily see how that can happen. I don't follow the NBA other than Dalton as of late. It was really cool to go see him over the winter. He took great care of us. But that is a blockbuster. And I miss the days of, again, when we grew up, George Brett only played for the Royals. Ozzie Smith was, for the most part, only a Cardinal. The next day, I asked a buddy who played in the big leagues, I was like, why are you guys chatting at first base? You're supposed to be trying to beat the other guy. If you get on base, you're talking to the first baseman. And he's like, dude, the next day that could be your teammate, when you get traded. And this was about 20 years ago I had that conversation. Nowadays, it's big business in college and in pro sports. And with that comes a lot of changes and turnover.
Yeah, I was going to ask earlier, instead of being nervous, if you're still stressed, but in the NIL era and just how everything works, I imagine that it's created a new stress for you altogether.
Yeah, it's just annoying. I mean, you're never going to have things, whether it's politics or what, government, you're never going to have things run true equity across the board, and you're never going to have them perfect. But it certainly seems to be some internal chaos right now. And part of it might just be working through all that, but it'd be nice to come out on the other side where it's not as, there's rumor mill, there's, other stuff that goes on. It's just not very straightforward. And it's one of the reasons why I really fell in love with a UFC thing is, yeah, there's things that go on behind the scenes there, but for the most part, it's two competitors with just shorts on. There's nothing to hide. They weigh the same. And again, you could get into that more if you wanted, but it's just competition. And there's nothing behind the scenes that kind of makes it, well, this college spent more money, or, the college president started dating somebody that invested in Amazon early, so they got a better quarterback than we do, and that's why we lost. I mean, I like competition, and right now it's a little bit foggy, but we'll see how it all comes out on the other side in hopefully a few years.
And then they all realized they could make more money boxing, so they went and started doing all these weird boxing events and cashing in.
Yeah, again, a whole nother you talk about one thing, and you can unfold a bunch of whole different layers no matter what it is. But that's why guys like you are great. You got a good voice and do excellent with what you do. So it's fun to talk about all these things. Everybody's got an opinion these days, which is fun.
That's what the world needs, Tony. Me, pretty chunky, sitting on here calling Luka Doncic fat, and that's the reason the Mavericks got rid of him. Yeah, me sitting here, he's too fat. He doesn't take it seriously. The Mavericks called him a drunk. Yeah, that's what the world needs. But all right, on the way out, 3 questions. This is a segment I invented. I coined this. It's just this or that. Very simple. You just pick one or the other. Sunday, sure. Chiefs or Eagles?
Oh, Chiefs. My family has season tickets. My mom's from Kansas City. I really like Jalen Hurts. I'd like to see somebody different win, but blood is thicker than water. Chiefs.
Better high, a walk-off home run or your closer with a strikeout to end the game?
The walk-off homer, and the Gilbert one was a huge stress reliever, so that stands out.
Was that better than the strikeout to win the World Series, though?
If you're just talking about how to end one, especially when it's a no-doubter like that. Yeah. But I'll take either.
Was in the building for both, by the way. I agree with your take. All right, last one. The 2024 National Championship or your high school state championship you won in soccer in 97.
Oh, man. I mean, people want to slash my tires, but I could not stop emotionally, just everything pouring out of me in high school. I grew up around my dad in that high school, and I was so fearful of not winning a championship before the time was over. So that was special. But I also can't be too crazy. Let's go with last summer.
Sertoma.com if you want to learn more information. Friendship Night, Thursday, February 6th, live in the Jewelry Television Theater. See, I'm a professional, but I can't really say jewelry. That's a tough word for me. It's always
Don't spell it either.
I was going to say I can't spell it either. My mom. But yeah, Thursday nights, an improv show, Tony Vitello, the GOAT, Josh Mancuso. You can still get some tickets now. There are a few VIP tickets available too. Sertoma.com. I'll be there Thursday, Tony. When I come up, you better act like we're friends now.
Oh, I will. No question. There'll be a full room, so make sure you find me. And I'm amazed to hear that there's a few tickets left. So we might as well fill that place. And I know some great money will be raised inside of the joint too, but we'll have a ton of fun.
And, maybe when you get some time, we'll play some catch or something, just throw the ball around. And, I've been writing letters. I've been contacting people for 8 years now trying to get a game of catch with you. So we gotta get it done.
Sooner than later, my friend. BP is slowly phasing my arm out from even eating cereal with it. So. All
right, Tony, appreciate the time.
All right, take care.
Best of luck this season.
Thank you.